Well, only 15 months after we voted to leave the EU and a mere 6 months after triggering Article 50 to start the process, we still don't really know what the government means by Brexit. But why should we, when it's clear the government doesn't know itself? Makes you wonder if they could organise the proverbial in a brewery. So we turn to a man who can. Tim Martin, the man behind the JD Wetherspoons pub chains. Other pub chains, of course, are available. But this is his take of the week.
If Theresa May likes this, she's heading to the right place. But if the PM is hoping to settle that disagreement over dough or our leaving bill, she may as well stay at home in bed. Negotiating with the EU is a complete waste of time. Barnier and Juncker just don't want to know. For there to be a deal, there has to be a willing counterparty, just like marriage. We've got an alternative. They won't listen. Let's get out. I believe Britain will do really well outside the EU because it'll be more democratic. We can do really well trading under World Trade Organization rules. Remember all those horror stories about leaving the ERM or not joining the euro? Yeah, that's right, they didn't happen. This situation isn't dissimilar. Most people don't realise that the EU charges tariffs to the great majority of countries which aren't in the EU. We can get rid of those tariffs as soon as we leave. That'll put more money into the hands of the UK public. Looking good. The main thing to remember is democracy equals prosperity. When we leave the EU, we'll have more democracy and we'll end our contributions to the EU, giving politicians the chance to spend more money on the NHS or to put their money where their mouth is more generally. Just remember, democracy equals prosperity. Let's not be afraid to walk away from whatever unpalatable deal Barnier and Juncker are cooking up for us.
Our thanks to Baz and Fred at Flatiron Square in South London. We'd like to point out there's nothing unpalatable about their pizzas. Contrary to what you saw, they are in fact delicious, though other pizzas are available. And we welcome Tim Martin to the programme. Michael, let me come straight to you, taking up Tim's proposal. Should we avoid the punishment, beatings and the humiliation and just walk away?
Well, I liked quite a lot of what Tim said, but I think businesses in this country lack Tim's nerve in general, and they're looking for some sort of transition deal. I mean, personally, I wasn't particularly keen on having the referendum. I'm pleased we voted for Brexit. I'm looking forward to Brexit. But for me, it's not a deal breaker to have a transitional period and even to make contributions of substantial sums of money.
But he's saying don't even make a deal.
Well, what he is saying, and this
Isn't that right?
And one of the things I think he's saying, and this is absolutely right, is that at the moment the negotiators we're dealing with in the European Union don't look as if they're going to make a deal possible, because they're insisting on an absurd sequence of events where the money has to be agreed before the trade deal, and that simply can't be done. So I think what we're hoping is that at some moment the real masters of Europe, who are Mrs. Merkel and Mrs. Merkel, really, will decide that this negotiating strategy is the wrong one. That may not come until the 11th hour of the 59th minute of the 11th hour. It may come right at the end.
There's no sign of it.
No, that's why I said,
There's no sign coming out of Berlin.
We're only 6 months in at the moment.
They've got the election on Sunday in Germany, but
and after the election, life may be different.
But I see no sign coming out of the election in Berlin, where everyone's assuming Mrs. Merkel will win. There'll be much of a change. What do you say to Michael? Then I'll bring Alan in.
I think it's, well, I entirely agree. I think it's in doubt now that Brexit will actually take place. I thought that today for the first time because I saw Hilary Benn, who's in charge of the Select Committee which oversees Brexit, and he said that he wanted to stay in the single market and the customs union for 2 years. So that takes you to 21. That's 5 years after the referendum. And what's going to happen in the meantime? I certainly didn't get the impression that Hilary Benn is bent on Brexit. And you've got,
no, he's definitely not. But isn't it? It's not as easy as you make out, is it? If we had no deal, there would be, because of the customs union arrangement, there would be huge disruption to sophisticated supply chains. There would be disruption to trade. There would, if it just fell off a cliff, there could be huge queues at Dover. It would be difficult.
I saw an interview with a former Australian Prime Minister, and he said the key thing about trade deals, and the EU, of course, has hardly done any substantial trade deals. It's only done small ones. He said the key thing is to give people a time limit, and I think he said it was about 6 months. If you don't, and you get lawyers involved, and there's no time limit,
sure,
or it's very long.
There is a time limit. It's 2 years.
But if we walked
now
out
it's extended
now,
to 4.
We'd have no trade deals.
Only
with
we
anybody
negotiate.
else.
Let me give you a concrete example because it's too theoretical. We are the biggest customer in the world for Lavazza coffee from Italy, and we're the biggest customer in the world for Kopparberg cider from Sweden. So does it matter to me, we're importing large quantities of those products, if it's 3 months or 3.5 years? What do I have to do? Nothing. So it's all a big filibuster, I feel.
Just picking up on really what Michael said about the European position, I mean, it's clear from Mr. Barnier, who heading up the negotiations for the Commission, from him down, that Brussels, they won't agree to any kind of deal that would help Britain make a success of Brexit. That's their biggest concern. So how can you negotiate with that?
I would amend that to say they're not going to do any deal that says that you can get all the advantages that you get from being a member when you leave. Now, that is a perfectly legitimate view. I mean, Tim's argument is that we should walk away. I was trying to think who he reminded me of. He reminded me when I was a trade union leader and used to negotiate a lot. There was always some trots saying, don't talk, just walk out. And it kind of sounded like that. I mean, it's not
that extreme.
It's not it is. It's not just the trade talks. It's not just the money. They're putting at the front of this EU citizens that live in this country and British citizens that live in the EU. That's a pretty important issue. They're putting at the front of this.
We've agreed to most
border
of that.
with Northern Ireland.
We can unilaterally deal with those
But there is a
things.
problem. There is a problem because we've ruled out any reference to the European Court of Justice, which is going to get us into a lot of problems.
Well, why should the European Court, if we're out, why should the European Court of Justice have any say over EU citizens in this country? They are and will be living in a country with the highest regarded legal system in the world, which the world comes to use our courts and our judges.
Yeah.
Why should the EC? Does the US Supreme Court have a say over American citizens?
Because their worry is British governments might change their minds. We're no longer part of the European Union. There is nothing to back that up. Look, the issue is...
There's nothing to back up the independence of the
That's
judiciary in
not
Britain.
democracy, though, Alan.
But your argument is we should just walk away.
No, you're exaggerating the argument.
No, you're saying we should just walk away. So we leave all those people with the situation unsettled.
We grant
leave
them
the situation in Northern Ireland unsettled. Hang on, we leave the European Medicines Agency unsettled. We leave Euratom unsettled. We leave all these issues which are crucial issues to people, and we go away and say we're not going to have any tariffs now. Anyone who wants to import into this country, there'll be no tariffs. That's what you
Could be a mess.
Without any...
Okay, no, you need to let him reply.
Qualify. What you say is, listen, Monsieur Barnier, we want to be friends with you. We're going to give the EU people over here all the rights that our own citizens have, and they can stay here. We haven't said that yet. No, we should. That's what we could say.
Well, we haven't said.
Okay, but you're asking me what I would say. We want a free trade deal, but if you don't want one, we can understand that, and we'll trade on World Trade Organization.
Well, hold on a minute.
rules.
You said two things at once in your piece. You said, and you've repeated it again, that if we don't get a deal, we fall back on these basic WTO, World Trade Organization rules, which set tariffs, minimum tariffs. Some are low, some are higher for various trade. But you then said we should have zero tariffs with everybody.
No,
well, which is it? You can't have both.
No, you can't. You
both.
can have both. Actually,
No, you can't.
Yeah,
actually.
yeah, Andrew, you can. This is the way you do it. You trade under World Trade Organization rules,
Which has tariffs.
and you say we are going to have impose zero tariffs, which is what I think Israel's done. Singapore's done something similar, and several other countries. So on incoming goods to this country from the EU or not from the EU, no tariffs, which is what economists for free trade have said we should do.
But that's not WTO rules. That's one-sided free trade. So under your system, we walked away. The Europeans could put a 10% tariff on Jaguar, but we won't put a 10% tariff on a Mercedes.
Possibly, yes.
It's one where Alan was making a big deal, I think, over-exaggerating the problems of EU citizens in this country. I think there's a bigger problem in your scenario. If you just walk away, what would happen to the rights of UK citizens in the EU?
Well, not everything is capable. Not everything is capable of a bargain. Can't control EU citizens, UK citizens in the EU.
There's a
but what
million
you
of them.
can do is you can say we'll do the right thing by EU citizens in the UK. If someone wants to be horrid to our citizens in another country, which I think would be very churlish and unlikely to happen, they can. But it's the thing that was made, I think, by the Labour Party. Don't turn them into bargaining.
Tim, you're right. I agree with you on that. I agree with you on that. But the point is that we have no deal for British citizens and the rest of the EU. And your point is to walk away from any negotiations because of these terrible, nasty Johnny foreigners.
Come on, Alan. I haven't been saying that. No. I haven't been saying.
You're making it personal to that they're undemocratic. Well, they're the people who negotiate on behalf of the elected leaders of the 27 member states. That's where they take
You're exaggerating the position.
I'm not exaggerating.
Walking away means World Trade Organization rules, granting rights to EU citizens, and
sacrificing
what
the
else?
rights of our own citizens.
Not sacrificing, but not making them bargaining chips.
Let me put a more fundamental. Even if Tim is right about walking away, isn't the political reality is that Mrs May does not have the political capital or the political authority to do it, to get it through her own cabinet, to get it through her own party, or to get a majority in the Commons for it.
Yes, that is absolutely right. And the question I have about tomorrow, when she speaks in Florence, is what exactly this speech is intended to achieve. I mean, the Cabinet has been debating the fine print of the speech. It's a bit like, angels dancing on the head of a pin, because all it is a speech. It's not going to produce an agreement. It's not going to get Mr Barnier to sign up or Mrs Merkel or anyone else.
No, but what she's going to say, because I've seen a bit of it, what she's going to say is she is going for the first time publicly to accept a transition period and to recognise that there will have to be some payments during that transition period as well.
That's a big
Yes.
And I think that's intended to try and move the negotiations forward. Whether they do or not, that's another matter, but that's the purpose. And she also wants to talk about a future relationship between the UK and the EU in terms of economics and security.
The position of the EU negotiators so far has been not only that the principle of paying some money should be settled, but that the amount of money should be settled before we can move on to other matters.
No, it's not. It's the methodology. Actually, they've specifically said they don't want to put a figure on it.
All right, let me just finish off with Tim, because we've run out of time. You're now worried that Brexit might not happen. You're a big Brexiteer, and you think it might not happen?
Yes, I think that if it's 5 years after the referendum, we're still in the customs union and the single market. People and the Financial Times and the Times and a hell of a lot of MPs are militating against Brexit. It puts it right into the long grass. It's already a partial non-Brexit.
We shall see, but we thank you for being with us tonight.